A lot of things that get talked about in the crypto space, it's things that will eventually happen. We are going to do this. Well, the things that are being built on Hedera are actually happening. There's really no network out there that has more potential when it comes to actual utility than HBAR. It's the oil to maybe Bitcoin's gold.
Hi, this is Mike Maloney with Brandon Hargraves of HBAR Bull. He's the HBAR Bull. And Brandon, it's been a while since we talked. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We're having so much fun in the crypto space in general, but Hedera specifically is really starting to heat up.
Yes, it went up basically 828% from November 2nd to December 2nd. So in 1 month, 828% rise. And it was pretty spectacular. And so I am so glad that I had the opportunity to load up on some HBAR very early on. It was quite a bit after we made episode 8 of Hidden Secrets of Money. It's really been a wonderful thing. And when it has risen up quite a bit, I have to rebalance my portfolio because everything gets out of whack. So I actually sell some crypto and I buy silver with the proceeds. And that protects me from the downside volatility. So anyway, there is a lot happening in this space. So just to remind all of the viewers, can you sort of describe what HBAR is? Because Hashgraph has just taken off like a rocket. For a while, you could buy it at a penny. Take us through, let the viewers know what it is first.
Sure. No, that great place to start. And we call those one centers, the people that were buying the very bottom back in January of 2020. But Hedera is a layer one network. It uses something called Hashgraph, which was invented by Dr. Lehman Baird. He's one of the founders of Hedera, and it has a lot of attributes that make it pretty special in the crypto space. And they created this public network around it. But not just that, they also wanted to have the proper governance. So to layer on top of incredible speed, so we can process 10,000 transactions per second, but it's throttled down to that. We can actually handle many tens of thousands of transactions per second. And with sharding, which it's already designed to do, as soon as we get to state proofs, it's going to be able to unlimited scale.
It's infinitely scalable.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And then it has the gold standard of security, asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance. It also has fair ordering, so you don't have to worry about front running, which we see an awful lot of in the rest of the crypto space. They call it MEV, maximum extractable value. And they also wanted to have proper governance. So they didn't just want a group of developers or just on-chain governance or something like that. They wanted to have the biggest users of the network governing the network. So they wanted to establish something called the Hedera Governing Council. And when Manson and Lehman, the two founders, were dreaming this up, they said, well, we want to make this network fit for purpose for enterprise use cases, mission critical enterprise use cases. And if we can meet the needs of them, we can meet the needs of everyone. So let's go find some enterprises to help us govern this network. And so they wanted Fortune 500 level entities throughout the world on different continents and in different industries to be able to govern the network. So when they first said this, people thought they were a little bit crazy, but now we're down the line and we have 32 of these council members. They include Google, Deutsche Telekom, IBM, Nomura. You can go pretty much all around the world. We have 32 of them, all on that level of different enterprises that have expertise in different fields, from law to tech to banking and so forth.
You left out Boeing, and there's some other really big names in here globally. So
yeah, we'll mention a few as we go through here, as I talk about some of the use cases.
How many spots are left open on the governing council?
So I believe we are up to 32, so it's going to be 39 total.
I hope that either Tesla or SpaceX gets on that list. I'm really hoping.
I'm hoping as well. We all are. But we'll touch on some of that as well.
Elon Musk, if you're out there, investigate it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And it has this network has different services that you can do on top of it. And it's similar to Ethereum. It's very versatile, can do a lot of different things, but we have a few services. We have just the cryptocurrency service, which allows you to send the native cryptocurrency HBAR back and forth. We also have a smart contract service, which is really versatile, but it's not quite as efficient as some of the other things. We have a consensus service, which is like an online notary. And then we also have a token service. So with a lot of these other networks, when they create tokens, and that can represent anything from just loyalty points or stable coins, so a currency, or it could be a security like a stock or a bond. When you create these tokens, if you create them with a smart contract like on other networks, you reduce the efficiency by like 99%. But if you do it at the base layer, you get all the efficiency of the base layer network. So you can get that 10,000 transactions per second. You can send transactions in just a few seconds to finality on our network. And so you get all those benefits of having that token service. So you can use the smart contract service and the token service together to really create some pretty amazing things.
Yeah, I just moved some from a wallet that I had to Coinbase,
Hmm.
and it took about a second to a second and a half to have
Sure.
tradable tokens on Coinbase from a wallet, private wallet.
Hmm.
And so the speed is absolutely amazing. Is there any crypto out there where Hashgraph can't do the same function faster uh, and more secure?
I can't think of anything, Mike. Pretty
Right.
much every vertical you can think of, from gaming to real world asset tokenization, decentralized physical infrastructure, Hedera is making strides in every single one of these verticals. It's one of the things that, we go through these 4-year crypto cycles, and there's always, a new thing coming along each time. But a lot of times, some of these really interesting use cases get left by the side of the road. And what Hedera's been doing is kind of picking them up, shining them up, and making them special again. What we've seen, we've had these 4-year cycles where we'll see this huge run up in this new technology as far as the prices go, and then it'll kind of drop off. And each one kind of has its own narrative. We had one in 2013 going into 2014, 2017, 2021, and it looks like we're just entering a new one now. And they all have their own tweak. In 2017, it was retail was kind of entering the space. In 2020, going into 21, we have now enterprises that are actually buying Bitcoin and buying crypto. We had MicroStrategies, we had Tesla, or yeah, it was Tesla, yeah, and then we had Square. They were kind of entering the space, and we also had in going back to 2017, I was kind of crossing my wires there. We also had the ICO boom. This one, it's a little bit different. So now we have ETFs. So it's a lot easier to get involved with these different products. We have Bitcoin had their ETFs in the very beginning of this year, and several of them launched. And then we also had an ETF for Ethereum. So the native cryptocurrency for the Ethereum network. Now we're starting to see some other ones get filed, and HBAR is included in that. And we can talk about that a little bit later. But I think the big impetus for the run up that we've seen lately has been the regulatory environment, or the perceived change in the regulatory environment. It's been pretty hostile over the past few years under the past administration. But the administration that's going to be coming in under Trump, it seems like it's going to be much more conducive to growth in the crypto industry. And also, during the past 4 years, there's been a bunch of different crackdowns on cryptocurrencies. Most of them have been the ones that actually have use, can actually do something. And that's allowed, Bitcoin kind of had a free pass, Ethereum a little bit less so, but kind of had a free pass. And then the meme coins, because they served absolutely no purpose, they also kind of got a free pass. Well, since the election, and people know that there's going to be at least some clear sailing ahead of us, um, it's allowed us to, we'll say, shift back over, or the focus of the market has shifted over to the tokens that have utility, can actually do something. And that's the
Right.
real promise of crypto. And there's really no network out there that has more potential when it comes to actual utility than HBAR. All of these utility tokens, as we call them, have seen a pretty good run up, but HBAR has been outperforming. I know when we were
Yeah.
at the bottom of the market, um, we'll say we are at about 50 on coin market cap. So that's the list of tokens and how much they're worth.
Yeah,
We're
you were
already up into the
50.
teens. So we've pretty much outperformed fairly well. And I think that comes down to people realizing that Hedera has utility. There's a good chance that it's going to be in the clear from a regulatory standpoint. And then once they jump into Hedera, and we're going to go through some of these rabbit holes now, they go down these rabbit holes and really realize how much potential's there.
Yeah, I think you hit something like 16 or 15. It's 18th biggest market cap right now. One of the things that we were talking about the functioning of it. When I look at this, it's a distributed ledger. This is the big thing, a full consensus distributed ledger. And you can protect things from hacking on a distributed ledger. It becomes, you're making whatever it is that you're putting into this network, you're making it much, much more secure. Right now, we're practically on the verge of World War III. World War III is going to look very different than any other wars. We have a very vulnerable power grid right now. We have a very vulnerable water system in the United States. Could our water distribution and power grid be, I mean, you can use Hashgraph for tracking inventory, correct?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot
Yeah.
of supply chain use cases out there, but you talked about water. One of the things that was experimented with early on, and we don't know which one of these use cases is going to catch the most fire. But one of the things that was being done was they had sensors that were hooked up to the internet that were pinging water or air quality and things like that through and putting that on the ledger using the Hedera consensus service so anybody can check it. And once it's on the ledger, we know that's accurate and that's the online notary. We're making sure that the provenance of that information is valid. So it certainly has a lot of applications there.
Can Bitcoin do any of this?
It's certainly not the way Hedera can. There's certain things
Right.
that you could certainly put on there, but as far as the efficiency, the difference is many orders of magnitude as far as the efficiency between the two networks. They serve just different purposes. Bitcoin might be a store of value, not as good as gold and silver in my view, but Hedera does a completely different thing. It's the utility. It does that real world asset tokenization to facilitate exchanges. It's that provenance of data. It can be those decentralized physical infrastructure, things along those lines. It's the oil to maybe Bitcoin's gold.
Okay, good description. You were talking about some real world physical assets being able to put on the hash graph. People want to say blockchain, and it's not a blockchain. So
Yeah.
the graph of hashes.
That's it. That's it. So yeah, real world asset tokenization. Now we're talking about all kinds of things. So it could be stocks and bonds, it could be currencies. They're all going to be tokenized. I have no doubt in my mind when you have something that is this much more efficient, we'll say with payments, you're transferring money. Hedera is 1,000 times more efficient than the legacy system. So Visa, it's 1,000 times more efficient. So there's no question that we're going to see things being tokenized. And we're seeing that happening continuously on Hedera. So Red Swan is doing that with real estate. We have teams like Diamond Standard, which is doing it with diamonds. We've had a couple of exchanges launch. So they're starting off small. We had a couple commodities exchanges. So it was Digital Commodities Exchange and Verto are two of the exchanges that started to do this with commodities. But now we're kind of moving up the ladder. The next one that we had, and this is one of the governing council members that just came online, it's the Nairobi Securities Exchange. So this is a national level stock exchange out of Kenya. And the representative that's been coming to the Hedera meetings has actually been the CEO himself. A lot of times, it's a lower level executive, it's somebody from upper management, something like that. But we actually have the CEO, and he's committed to wanting to build his exchange on top of Hedera. And of course, that's where it's going to start. We're going to have, Nairobi Stock Exchange, maybe some other smaller exchanges to start off. And then it's just going to move up the line. You're going to have, Texas Stock Exchange, which is going to be launching soon. They're going to start to focus on how is this being done? Where does the efficiencies come from? How fast is the finality? All that kind of stuff. And then it's going to be New York Stock Exchange, COMEX, FTSE. It's just going to go down the line. It's exciting to see. We know that this stuff is going to happen. And, when we first had some of those traditional exchanges with Verto and Digital Commodities Exchange come online, we're like, we see where this is going. And it's following exactly how I expected. And now we have one of the governing council members that's running an exchange that wants to put Hedera at the core of their tech stack.
Awesome. So you talked about 1,000 times more efficiency. So it's 1,000 times more efficient in what aspect? Because it's even far greater than that when it comes to energy consumption. Like compared to Bitcoin, the energy consumption is so infinitesimally small. When it comes to transaction fees, it's 1/100th of a penny to transfer any amount, $1 trillion. The fee is 1/100th of a penny. So what aspect do you have any other measurements of efficiency when you're talking about fees, the speed, the energy efficiency, and so on?
Now, I don't have them all memorized off the top of my head, but I was actually, when it's 1,000 times more efficient than the centralized system of Visa, right?
Visa. Okay.
Visa,
so if you're
not
talking
Bitcoin.
about like Bitcoin power consumption compared to Hashgraph, it is probably more like hundreds of thousands or millions of times more efficient.
And we'll get you the slide that shows how much more efficient. Even some of the other very efficient DLTs out there, they're 100x less efficient than Hedera. And this was actually, there's a couple different entities that bore this out. The one that I'm quoting right now is from the University College London, one of the Hedera governing council members. You might think that they became a council member and then did the study. It was actually the other way around. They did the study and then they said, you know what, this is something we want to be involved with. So they became a Hedera governing council member. But you're absolutely right around the fees. And what that energy efficiency does is it allows you to have the most headroom into how low your fees can get. So it doesn't matter if right now there might be some other DLTs out there that are covering all the costs. So for them, it's free. You don't get a free lunch. Eventually, they're going to have to pay for that. But Hedera, because it is the most efficient, has the most room to lower their fees. And there's different fees for different services on Hedera. So if you're spinning up a new account on Hedera, I think it's about 2 cents. For using Hedera consensus service or the cryptocurrency service, like you mentioned, it's 1/100th of a cent. For transferring tokens, so it might be a security, like I said, or it might be a currency, or it might be a loyalty point, it's 1/10th of a cent. If you're using the smart contract service, now, like I said, that's less efficient. So that's 5 cents, still cheap, but not nearly as cheap as the 1/10th of a cent for sending a token back and forth. So the efficiency, even though we talk about the environmental efficiency, the electrical efficiency, being good for environmental use cases, it really comes down to dollars and cents.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So once stocks start trading on this and you've got exchanges going and everything, this, I said in episode 8 of Hidden Secrets of Money that this, to me, it brought the great hope back. When I went to, in 2014, I went to Bitcoin on the Beltway, and it shows me buying my first Bitcoin. It was just $100. It was a fraction of a Bitcoin. And then I went back and kept on feeding that machine. And
I remember that well.
Yeah. But at that conference, Ethereum had just been introduced, and there was a great unity among everybody. Everybody felt that they were changing the world, that they were making a difference, that they were opening up free. The big hope was that everything would be a peer-to-peer payment system like Satoshi Nakamoto had envisioned, that Bitcoin was going to be used as money, and that Ethereum was going to be used for the smart contracts and such. And then the Bitcoin block size got capped, and at about the same time, all of these other cryptos sprang up. Oh, by the way, you were talking about meme cryptos. When Hashgraph was peaking just recently, HBAR was peaking at 39 cents. I went and looked at the top performer in the last hour, the last day, the last week, and it was HBAR every time, except when you went to monthly, it was outperformed by Peanut the squirrel.
Yeah.
Which doesn't do anything, right?
Sure, sure. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of that capital that, like I was saying before, that was in those meme coins because they were crazy to say, but they were safer from a regulatory standpoint than these
Yeah.
tokens that actually do things. And I think a lot of that capital is going to move into things like HBAR.
Yeah. Well, when Lehman and Mintz developed HBAR, they were very careful to try to make everything as compliant as possible, knowing in the future that this would be necessary if you wanted to be able to put stocks on the in the graph of hashes. So it was done with an eye that this would all be regulated one day. And so they were prepared. I find this all very exciting. And
Yeah.
just to remind the viewers, we're up at about 29 cents right now. And it was 10 cents the last time that you and I had a conversation. I think the time before that, it was about a nickel. And, it had been down, like I said, and you said, at 1 penny for quite a while. And so the opportunity that was there, and I think there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity as all of these things get adopted, as you see HBAR starting to move into be. So HBAR is the base level platform that all of these other things ride on top of, right? So that's like the railroad tracks. And what do you call the thing that is the train that's going to carry stocks,
Well,
bonds?
yeah. Generally, I mean, we call all these different things use cases that are built on top of Hedera. Now, HBAR itself is like I said, the oil. It's the payment for all the different services. So all the services cost. I quoted some of the prices for them. They're paid in HBAR, but priced in dollars. So they're marking that to market on a regular basis. So you pay all those fees in HBAR, and that's where the demand for the HBAR comes from. And some of those go to some of the HBAR that's brought in can be used for incentivizing additional nodes that could be run. It can be used for incentivizing the token holders to secure the network. And then it can be used to continue to build out the ecosystem and build the network.
So the
But
HBAR tokens are required by the people that build these. Do you call them dApps? What the
that, yeah,
the use
there's all,
cases?
yes, they can
They're
be.
building a layer on top of it, but it requires those tokens for this layer to run. And
There's all
so,
kinds of applications that are being launched here. We'll talk about one here. We already talked about real world asset tokenization. The next one we'll get into is decentralized physical infrastructure. So we've touched on some of these things. One of the things that I've noticed is a lot of things that get talked about in the crypto space, it's things that will eventually happen. We are going to do this. Well, the things that are being built on Hedera are actually happening. So in this decentralized physical infrastructure space, one of the teams is YSAT and CLSQ. They're both founded by the same person. They're sending these satellites up into space to facilitate transactional Internet of Things. And CLSQ is going to have this seal coin, or actually, I think I'm not sure where the token itself is going to reside, but that's going to be the medium of exchange for these different objects that are out there, whether it's smart cities or autonomous vehicles, smart homes, whatever it may be, to be able to transact between those different objects. Of course, we want to onboard the next billion users, but we also need to onboard the next trillion objects. That's one of the things that Carlos, the founder of these two entities, says all the time. We're going to onboard those. And he's creating with CLSQ the chips that are going into all these different objects. Since the last time we talked, they've made some traction with potential customers. They have the Swiss Army that's interested in what they're doing. They're also building the hardware. So they're building these chips and they're going to go into these different objects. And they're also going to be building a phone. It's going to be a Web3 crypto enabled phone. We're trying to get a lot of the dApps, like you said, that Hedera has, whether it's Hashpack or Twigital or Earthlings. That's a game, Karate Combat. We're going to try to get all these dApps on the phone so people could use them as soon as it comes out of the box. But then it's also designed to be post-quantum resistant. That's what the chips are, to be able to make this Web3 world so much easier for people to use. But it's not going to stop there. That's going to be the start. They're putting these satellites into space, ready for these transactional Internet of Things. So all of the infrastructure is getting to the point where it's in place and ready to go. So the next layer is getting that token to be able to transfer between one another. And that's supposed to be coming next year. And that token is going to be built on Hedera. Another DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure use case, is Neuron. And Neuron is, there's another network that's similar out there called Helium. But Neuron did it a little bit differently. They said, well, what's the one use case we know that what we want to do is perfect for? And it was actually drones and aviation, making sure to track these objects as they're going through and doing what they need to do. They knew that there was going to be the need for delivery using drones. There's no point in having a 4,000 pound vehicle delivering an object that's only a few ounces. So you can do all of that with drones. So they said, well, what is the best sensors we would need to put out to be able to do that? They determined what those sensors were, and then they went about and made sure that they had customers. They're in deep talks with, well, 3 of the 4. He has James, the founder of this team, hasn't told me which 3, but the big 4 drone delivery services are Google Wing, Amazon Prime, Zipline, and Mana. And they're in deep talks with 3 of those 4. So they have the customers. Then they needed to go out and put the sensors out. So they started a beta program. They have these sensors already throughout the world. And now they're going to be moving on to the next step. They need to incentivize all the people that are running these different sensors. And they're starting off with that beta program, but they're going to need a token because these transactions have to be done on a very regular basis. So they're going to be launching a token again on Hedera going into next year. And then it's going to be all about scaling. Once they've gotten that layer on board, they're going to scale. They'll start off with that aviation use case, tracking drones and incentivizing all of the sensor operators. But those sensors are very useful for a lot of other things as well. So they're going to move directly from that into autonomous vehicles, into smart cities. These things take years. Even though you can dream things up, that doesn't mean it's going to come to fruition. And the difference I see with what's happening on Hedera and a lot of other networks is the teams that are attracted to and building on Hedera are actually making these things come to fruition.
Are there any other topics that you wanted to touch on?
Well, certainly the gaming space is an interesting one to talk about. And this is being done in a lot of different ways. We've talked about Karate Combat in the past. So they spun up a token called Karate, and they do something called up-only gaming. So you can acquire these tokens several different ways. They have airdrops of them. You can go and buy them on the open market. And then they have these big events on a regular basis. The next one's going to be coming out on December 19th down in Miami. And whichever fighters you think are going to win, you can put your tokens on those. If you get it right, you get more tokens. If you don't, you don't lose anything. And they have that all built into the tokenomics. They can work on having revenue in their token, which is called Karate. And this is another example of we're seeing the usage go up. When they first launched the first up-only gaming event, they had about 1,500 users. Few events later, they were up to 11,000. Few events later, it was 38,000. Now they're at 120,000. And all of these use cases on Hedera are going through that same kind of curve. It might start slow, but it goes much faster over time, as not only are we getting new use cases online, but each individual use case is starting to ramp up. And that's all revenue for the Hedera network. While we're on gaming, one of my favorite is Earthlings. A lot of these teams that get attracted to the Hedera ecosystem, they are grinders. And they've already launched a mini game. It's called Steam Runner. It's just a simple sidekick game. They're trying to put these things out because they're completely bootstrapped on a regular basis. They want to have 3 of these sidekick games every year. And the main way they use Web3, they use Hedera, is they spin up tokens for in-game assets. That could be the in-game currency. It's called Steam. You can use that to trade back and forth in the game, because a lot of times in games you need those in-game currencies, but also other kinds of assets. So they have avatars, so the different types of people, and they have different attributes. So one might run faster, one might be able to jump further or slide further, um, all kinds of different things. And you can, once you've gotten one of these avatars, you can use it in all the different games. So everything that they come up with, even other games that are done by different teams, they might be able to work with other teams and allow those assets, which become bearer assets, as long as you have it in your wallet, you can use it wherever. And that's where I really started to feel the power of these NFTs, because they are non-fungible tokens. Because as soon as I started playing their first game, I was like, you know what? I wanted this different avatar. And without thinking twice, I dropped a couple thousand HBAR, which now is worth a lot more than when I actually bought it. But I went and I got all the different avatars because I wanted to try them all out. But I know that not only can I use it for that one small game that I was playing at the time, but all of these games that are going to be coming out, I'm going to be able to use it every single time. I don't want to say it's an investment, but there's going to be more things you can do with it over time. And those are their sidekick games, but they're also going to create this grand scale gaming metaverse to participate in as well. It's family friendly. I've been having a blast with it so far, and the team seems really excited about it.
Wow. What is your website? How do they find you? What's your YouTube channel?
The best way to find me is just to go to my YouTube channel, the HBAR Bull. And if you are curious about any things we talked about today or other things that are going on in the crypto space that you want to see if anything's happening on Hedera, just search on my site. Like we talked about Neuron. You can go ahead and search Neuron. I think I have 4 different videos from that team. So you can learn about CLSQ or Earthlings or any of the other teams we have going on. Certainly, I want to give a shout out to my company, Twigital. We do an interesting thing as well, and you can do the same thing. You can go ahead and check out what's going on my channel on YouTube to figure out exactly what's going on for that and everything else that's happening on Hedera.
Describe Twigital and the process here.
Real quick before we get out of here. So what Twigital does is it uses photogrammetry. We actually have a few different ways that you can capture objects. Pretty much any physical object, you take either a video of it or you can take a series of pictures of it, and it renders that into a 3D version of that can live in digital immersive environments. And then it tokenizes that on Hedera, and you can use it for all kinds of things. It could be used for insurance. You can use that token as the value transfer mechanism if you want to trade those things back and forth. But now you don't just have to have your display shelf in your basement, but it can be the entire world, because all of these digital immersive environments like, Apple Vision Pro or everything that Meta has been working on, it's going to be native for all those places. So, this is going to be the Web3 version of that, and it's going to track the provenance of all those physical objects that you treasure.
Okay, well, this is all awesome news, Brendan. I want to thank you very much for this interview. And I want to remind everybody to like and subscribe, but not only here, over on Brandon's channel too. So go there, go to his website, investigate this. It's worth learning about. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you, Mike. It was my pleasure.